Hey everyone, real quick, I just wanted to say thank you for checking out the video. I know that some people wouldn't even give it a chance when they see that it's nearly an hour long, but this is something that I just felt really compelled and driven to make and actually complete. It's kind of like a musical passion project of mine that just kind of came to be within like the last week, and may be of no interest to anyone else, but you know, I'm proud of this and I put a lot of effort into it, getting it all together. So, you know, basically you can think of this like almost like a musical masterclass, sort of like a TED talk of sorts. There'll be more music from me and, you know, stuff for you to enjoy throughout, but basically I guess I wanted to share, you know, the inspiration, creative process, musical specifics, and just in general like the overall storyline of how this unique composition, you know, came into being, you know, how it was created. Because like I said, I think it's actually very unique and there's a few interesting things going on with this. And if you enjoy music and musical creativity and composition and, you know, all this stuff, like you nerd out on this, you know, I think this will be something that, you know, you can find some value in. All right, so we got a lot to cover, so we'll get into it now. But again, thanks for checking it out and I hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, hope all is good. Today I want to share something that I personally happen to find exceptionally interesting. I hope that you guys do as well. I definitely had to take some mad scientist kind of notes for this one, as you could see. I have a lot to say, I guess, here, and I don't want to get lost in rambles, so hopefully that helps. I also decided to use my whiteboard for you today. I erased all my personal stuff. Just want to try and make it easier. I'm going to write some things throughout and hold it up, you know, excuse the amateur setup, but I just really felt compelled to make this video. So we're just starting off with a little circle of fifths for now, but you'll see when I add to it. And also, there's going to be some stuff, like some resources and whatnot, that'll go along with this video if anyone is interested and wants to check it out. That'll be available on my Patreon. The links are in the description. And for this one, I'm going to give it all for free, just because if anyone likes what I'm doing in this one, I'm stoked on that, and I appreciate that you're interested, all right? So it's there if you want to check it out. So if you appreciate what I'm doing here, support me, give the video a like, become a subscriber, consider becoming a contributor to Patreon, where you'll get all the PDFs on this channel for only $5 a month. It's a great deal. And if you're interested in lessons, you can reach out to me, or anything else, just reach out. I'm here to help. All right, so I hope you enjoy. Now, real quick, before I really get into the video, I just wanted to start with a little side point that I felt compelled to share. Maybe it'll add to the mystique of the video, I don't know, but a lot lately I've been saying how I've been getting all these creative ideas for videos, and it can be hard to decide what to actually do, and oftentimes what'll happen is whatever the next video is that I actually end up making, it'll often be different from whatever my original intentions were, and those intentions are definitely real. I'm definitely mentally committed to them at points, but they can just become more extensive, and other things just seem easier to get out, and you know, we all feel that sort of pressure from the YouTube consistency taskmaster, right? But in this one, I actually became interested in 3 different ideas sequentially over the week, and this is actually the second of 3, because you'd think by that logic it'd be the third one that I end up doing, but I ended up coming back to the second. But I'm going to do all 3 of these videos, because I think they're good, and I think people will appreciate them, alright? But this one, I just, as you'll see, think has a particular kind of special in it, alright? So, in the intro, you saw me just messing around a little bit, giving you like a raw demo of this new composition that came to be a few days ago. And, you know, I've always been the person, just as far as presenting your compositions and your works to the world goes, that kind of thought, like, if I'm going to really do that and give the world my, perfected, refined works, whatever that might be, I would usually think that YouTube may not be the most elegant medium for doing exactly that, right? Like, I'm cool with lessons or little musical examples, but that's not really like your works, but things are always evolving. But with this video, really why I want to show you is because my genuine intentions are to really try to communicate clearly, or sort of recreate what my own inevitable thought process or experience was basically when this composition came into formation, because I happen to think it's pretty interesting and unique, and I think other people would find it interesting as well. Maybe this can lead to things, if I'm having delusions of grandeur, maybe it'll significantly impact the evolution and, stylings of music and whatnot, who knows, right? And when I say this stuff, just like a little disclaimer, I'm by no means saying that it's not like coming from a narcissistic angle where it's like, hey, look at my great composition and look how unique it is. It's not that at all. I'm sure a lot of people watching may relate, if they compose, some compositions, they take a while, and some, they just come to you quickly, almost like from the divine. And this, I had an idea for what would lead to this, as you'll see, but, it's like it just sort of came through me, and I'm grateful to receive it and share it with everyone, all right? And also, any of the sort of unique sort of compositional approaches or inevitable devices or whatever that, as you'll see, are within this, I'm also not trying to say that there's nobody else that has ever done anything like this, or that I invented anything, or was the first person to do this. I don't know. But as you'll see, like what we're going to get into, whether it's been done before or not, it's definitely uncommon. And if you try to like research, like, is there any music that has this, good luck coming across anything. Like, if anyone definitively knows of anything that's related to this, let me know. Like, I'm definitely interested, all right? So yeah, just figured I'd say that first, all right? So let's get into it. Now, if I'm really gonna try to unveil how this composition came to be, I think I really would have to go back to the beginning, as best as I remember, of like what essentially caused the initial spark that would lead to this idea in the end, right? So sometimes when people get inspiration for composition, songs, whatever, it's not necessarily coming from things that are related to music, right? So, from my perspective, and I think a lot of people may generally agree with this when I say this, and if you don't agree, let me know, because that might be the case as well. But to me, kind of seems like there's a lot of unordinary things happening in the world right now, and I may be wrong about that, who knows, but I recently, learned about something that was new to me for the first time, and almost surprisingly, I'm pretty sure I never really learned about this or was like exposed to this before. Who knows, maybe it wasn't significant at the time, but as far as this coming into my life, I don't know if this is because the whole world might be collectively going through something and evolving right now, or if this has more to do with how I've trained my own personal algorithm to feed me these sorts of things. But what I'm talking about is, I've been going down the rabbit hole of like the whole like 369 numbers, and that whole like numerology thing. And it was Nikola Tesla, for people who don't know what I'm talking about, that was like talking about this and the power of these numbers and the frequencies and how they are found in nature. And believe me, I'm not gonna try to explain it myself right now. You can check it out. You can go down the rabbit hole. It's all very intriguing, but for me as a musician, like I said, it's all interesting, but specifically because I'm a musician, it causes me to wonder, how this may relate to actual music in ways that I would say are actually practical, or try to see like how this could easily be integrated into like conventional music theory and how musicians more or less already, understand how music works and how we put it together and make music, right? Generally speaking. And, if you dig around on this stuff, any sort of relationship that people have really stated already of like how this like 369 thing like is found in music, it may be true, whatever, but personally I haven't really found it to be, like I said, that practical, or how is it actually going to help you in creating music. All right, in fact, in my opinion, like the most significant thing that I've thought of, this really relates to number 9 in particular, but basically, whatever interval you have in music, the inversion, regardless of what they are, they always add to 9. That's like the most significant thing I've thought of. So because there isn't a lot of information as far as I know about this stuff, like I said, it caused me to wonder what may be like sort of how this stuff relates to music. Maybe nothing, it's a mystery, right? But just to sort of give you an idea of like maybe what I'm thinking about in my head, or just like initial seeds, I might be thinking about how those numbers 3, 6, 9 relate to music, specifically when it comes to things like form or phrasing and like, rhythms of things, because we can often think of those numbers harmonically, like those intervals 3, 6, and 9, and that's fine, but I'm kind of thinking about like frequency. Like technically those pitches are frequencies, but I'm talking about like the way we hear it, like spatially in time, and sort of trying to organize things perhaps within those numbers. I don't know, but that's, I guess, where my head was at. All right, so from there, before I even thought to actually develop something into an actual composition, what happened first was, I had an idea to do something. Basically, for my warm-up, I guess, that day, I decided to do like a guitar transcendental meditation type thing that I've talked about before in episode 91 on this channel. But I'll basically play like a mantra that I create for like 20 minutes non-stop. But because I was interested in this whole 369 thing, I had the idea of like, all right, like let me see if I can make one that is specifically like 9 notes long, right? So, basically what I ended up creating was this. I mean, it was on the MIDI before too, but right, that's the first little piece, right? If you hear it on this, right, well, there's more to it, but you hear it repeating there. But basically that was the initial thing. Now, just as far as those pitches go, largely like the beginning of that, if you can maybe hear it already, it's coming from the circle of fifths. I started on F, and I'm literally just going through the circle through fifths. And for those of you who don't know, like I just said, intervals inversion always adds to 9, so a perfect fifth inverted common stuff is a perfect fourth. So I may be going down a fourth, just, for range and everything, but going down a fourth is the same as going up a fifth. So I do that for the first 8 notes. I go, right? Oh, actually, that, yeah, and then that. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? Basically, I'm going from F, as you can see, to F sharp. And I have 4 notes that remain, all right? And I can pick any note. I can do whatever I want. I don't even have a rhythm yet. I ultimately ended up on A, or A flat, this one, all right? What did I say here? I said all fifths except for the last one, A flat. That note just felt right, because with only 9 notes, I can't make like a complete 12-tone row, because I kind of had that sort of thinking, like I want the 9 notes to be like different for whatever reason this time. But the A flat, I guess, appealed to me. And I wasn't thinking about harmony or anything yet. That had, no idea about that yet. But one thing that I did realize, actually a little later, was before that note, the note right before this is F sharp, right? And even though I'm calling this A flat, I mean G flat, F sharp, whatever, come down the octave, like the A flat is just a whole step above there. So, not a half step, but the voice leading, there's still some logic there if I had to try to adjust something, over analytically. All right, so that was like the initial notes. So, like I said, I still have nothing as far as harmony, form, etc. So, and I'm just trying to build a little mantra for meditation. So, the next thing that sort of came to be was like the rhythm of the phrase, all right? I wanted something that sounded natural because when I build these mantras, I want them to feel naturally like cadential, where it feels smooth and it can easily like turn around on itself as if it's a loop. And even though I don't have a rhythm to it yet, just the fact that I have 9 numbers, 9 notes, and I'm trying to do that, that's not a common, number of notes to try to get something like that, right? So, basically, after a little thought power and everything else, I'll write it after. Basically, what I settled on, which I've already played it, was this type of rhythm. Right? So basically, the way I conceived it was, if I have 9 notes, the first 6 I kind of thought of as like 2 groupings of 3, almost like triplets. And then the last 3, they're inevitably like quarter note triplets, so they're twice as long as that. And I would count it basically like, you can think triplet, or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But then, because the last 3 notes are quarter note triplets, like, you accent them, you group them in 2 instead of 3s. So you count it like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, right? And I'm gonna write this out for you here. So I didn't say this yet, and this is gonna apply for the whole thing today. This whole thing goes in 4/4. Everything that is inevitable. It's not any odd time. There's still some odd things form-wise going on, as we'll see. But, it's all pretty logical and clear. So let me just write this out. 2, 3. All right. So basically, what we have is we have one measure of 4/4, and the first 2 beats we have 8th note triplets, 1 and a 2 and then the last 2 beats we have 3 quarter note triplets. All right, so fits perfectly in 4/4. Now, one thing that we can notice about this, because I am doing this in 4/4, but inevitably, like this example and this rhythm perfectly teaches us about like the difference between 6/8 and 3/4 and how they're felt, because they are kind of like the same meter, but we distinguish between them, all right? 6/8, it's more like a triplet thing, like 1 and a 2 and a, because we can, like I said, we can count it 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and when we count it like that, the 1 like reestablishes the accent, where this one, it's more like really like a waltz, like 1, 2, 3, right? So it's because of that, even though I can identify this, hold on, is 6/8, and this is 3/4. From an accent point of view, because 6/8 is all about that split, and with what I just said, we can think of this 6/8 as like a 2, right? And that's another thing I realize, like 6/8, they all fit within the same polymetric meter, 6/8, 3/4, and 4/4, but 6/8 I think relates to a more even separation than 3/4, right? So we can think of the 6/8 like a 2, and what we essentially have within this one bar is a 2, 3, what you might call clave, all right? It's a little different from, how people typically talk about claves in music with Latin music, and for those who don't know, clave literally comes from the word, as far as I understand, llaves, which means keys in Spanish. It's kind of like the key to, the groove, whatever. And usually, and, this is going to get evolved too, but like, conventionally, claves, whether they're 2/3 or 3/2, they're like 2-bar patterns, but they're a little bit more like asymmetrical as well, because it's like the 3 can be like over the bar line, so it doesn't like have like just the 3 in the first one and 2 in the other, if that makes sense. But with what I already have here with this rhythm, it already created to me like a unique sort of asymmetrical groove, and it was different from a more conventional like 4/4 type of groove. But like I said, that also applies with regular claves, because, or even like if we're talking about a swing beat, because in a basic swing beat, people think about how the eighth notes might be swung, so they think like asymmetrical, but that's not still like where the beat is. You see, if you have like the 2 and the 3, the same thing applies here. It's basically like the accents are like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So those 1, 2, 1, 2, 3s, those are like the beats. But the beats of the 2, they're different rhythmic subdivisions from the 3. That's different from a normal like meter. Like if we're in 4/4, like every one of those 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all the same duration. Or if we're in 3, 4, 6, 8, right? So with a clave, that's what sort of makes it easy to feel the groove, to fall into it, because they actually are different rhythms, but the count makes it clear. All right. All right. So where are we going from here? All right. So like I said, originally this was just a mantra for meditation, and it seems pretty seems pretty cadential to me, right? And I was fine with it. But notice again that it's a 1-bar pattern basically for now. All right, so what happened next was I actually had the idea to try to work this into a real composition. And I had another specific thing, because I already noticed, like we're talking about 3/6/9. My original idea was to start with a 9-note like figure, ostinato motif, whatever. And the way that I rhythmically broke it up involves 6s and 3s as well, and I fit 9 like that. So already, just take notice of that. So I decided, you know what, I want to try to develop this into a 9-bar form. All right, and this is the most sort of, to me, intriguing thing. Even when I was talking about in the beginning of the video, like I don't know. There are 9-bar compositions, I'm sure, but if you try to do research on them, like, let me know, because it's very hard to actually find results to that quickly, unless you're like listening to music now and trying to see if anything has 9 bars. But what I wanted to do, like, I basically had the idea of like, can I actually make a 9-bar form that sincerely feels natural and smooth, all right? And I'm going to say more on this later, and that is essentially what the final composition is, what you heard me playing over in the beginning. And I think I'll mention now, like, that's why this composition, I titled it 3/6/9 for obvious reasons. It is a 9-bar composition, and I kind of have these thoughts of like, because I like all types of forms and compositions, but I'm a big fan of short forms for jazz, especially, and playing over them as well. And like, what's another common short form in jazz that is extremely popular? It's the blues, right? Where it's a thing where it sort of repeats chorus after chorus quickly, but we can feel that time and communicate with it, right? So I'll say more on that later, but it is a 9-bar form, and like that was my goal now. All right, so I have all these sort of approaches and ideas in my head, and that's what leads to the rest of this. All right, so like I said, the pattern as it started out with was a 1-bar pattern, and I basically realized, because I wanted to get to 9, but I said I thought one. Alright, so the original recording of this video actually got disrupted by an alarm on my phone a little while ago, but I'm actually grateful for it, because it's definitely having a difficult time, just continuously getting through all this. So I think it actually was a perfect place for a little intermission. So just to recap it, to keep it simple, with everything that I've established already, it was basically coming out of a mantra that I created, and now I'm going to go forward and turn it into a form or a composition. But I basically had the idea to use 9 notes to make some sort of repeatable mantra or rhythmic or cadential figure, but there's also a melody. It's like the bass line part, and we ended up with a 1-bar repeatable rhythmic figure in 4/4 that basically, it was symmetrical. Like, we divided it up in half, and the first half we used 6 notes to have 6 eighth note triplets, 1 and a 2 and a, and then the 3 remaining notes filled the second half of the bar with 3 quarter note triplets. And the 6, 8, you know, where the accents fall based on the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We reduce that down to 2, so we end up with like a 2, 3 clave. And those two numbers, like where they split, like where the 2 ends and the 3 begins, I think it is interesting to note that it splits the bar 4, 4 perfectly in half, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, right? And also, now that I want to make a composition, like I said, my objective is to see if I can turn this into something that is specifically a 9-bar form and try to make it sound logical and not off balance and stuff musically, all right? So the very next thing that I did was I basically realized and kind of felt that even though this was the primary rhythmic figure motif of this idea, I thought as a 1-bar sort of figure where it repeats every bar, it was kind of moving too quick. So I thought it would be good, maybe for what I was trying to do, to basically take this rhythm, and rhythm is all relative, so double everything up so that everything basically is twice as long, and basically the harmonic rhythm, is doubled. So instead of having a 1-bar rhythmic figure, we're going to end up with a 2-bar rhythmic figure. And just bear with me as I draw this out sloppy, real quick. 1 second. 1, 2, 3. Right. So in 4/4, basically it turns into the first bar being 6 quarter note triplets and the second bar being 3 half note triplets, right? And if we look at this again, like you could see this as like 6/4 and like 3/2 as like time changers, and I could literally write it like that, and you just wouldn't have the triplets. But in 4/4, that's what it turns out to be. All right, and like a half note triplet, I've practiced those rhythms before, and they're not as common, but even working with this idea here, practicing it, it made me even better at like feeling the half note triplets, almost in a way where I'm used to feeling like quarters in relationship to eighth note triplets. But let's keep it moving, all right? So that's the original basic rhythmic figure and foundation for my composition, all right? And just because I'm talking about rhythm and like all that, I guess this is a good time to also point out that eventually I'm usually not this specific or care about like exact tempos of a song. Like I have an idea of the speed of them or whatever, but this was within the range of how I was playing it anyway. But I ended up with the exact tempo of 189 beats per minute, all right, in 4/4, just because again with the whole 3/6/9, the numbers 1, 8, and 9 add to 18, which adds to 9. It all factors out, all right? So let's go ahead and try to turn this into a 9-bar song. So, there's a lot of things still missing. We can think about the melody, but that's not even a concern yet, and I knew that would probably come last anyway with this, all right? So I still don't really have a harmonic conception at all about, how I might want to interpret the, and I don't have anything as far as like a form or whatever goes, right? So we gotta figure that out. So if we first think about the harmony and, let's see what we're working with these notes, like I said, right? By context, because the second bar in this case is when the sort of pace of the little figure like slows down, it's almost like the ear hears this, like the first slower note, as like an arrival or an accent, even if it's not. And that note is B, all right? Now, without overanalyzing right now, from that note forward, because I'm landing on that and just the other notes, I originally kind of heard this relating, and still do, to like a B minor sound, root, fifth, that would be like the 13, but B minor, and even with the rest of it. Now, let me just say that part I kind of related to sounding like F major or D minor, because we have F, like if we think D minor, this is the third of that, like D minor 7 is the flat 7, that's the 11, that's the root, that's the 5th, and then that's the 9, right? So it's very perfectly like that. But even though I'm kind of explaining it like D minor to like B minor, just moving down a minor third, the way that I'm sort of hearing it, like I have no form yet, but just this little 2-bar pattern, 1, 2, kind of reminds me of like a night in Tunisia. Instead of resolving to D minor, it resolves to B minor. It doesn't really matter, but this is gonna help us like understand some harmonic context, right? If we thought about like a night in Tunisia, it's like you have the tritone sub a half step up from the minor. So if I think about like going to B minor, we go up a half step and you have like C7, which is like the tritone sub, right? So you know, because like I said, I'm basically establishing that the second sound for now is kind of like a B minor 7 chord, but I'm not going to write that like that yet. So instead of thinking of like C7 in terms of like how that might relate to D minor, well, again, if the tritone sub like C7 is implying like C mixolydian, you go up a whole step, you have aeolian. Definitely an over analysis, but again, while we're in the weeds with this, I think it could be helpful to just point this stuff out, or just, you know, see how we can connect those sounds, because really what it is like D minor moving to B minor. But what I actually end up on is this. Like, just as a 2-bar figure, first chord makes sense. I'm gonna call it D minor 9, right? That's basically what I said before, D minor 9. The second one, even though I do see it, like, or hear it as like a B minor sound, I end up writing as a chord, like as if it was in a chart, A, like A major triad over D. Simple harmony like that, all right? And just to kind of show you, if I'm thinking within the context of B minor, like, it's basically a B minor 9 without the, at 9/11 without the root and the bass. So I put a B in the bass, you know, that's your 3rd, 7, 9, 11, right? So it's just like relative major. But I like something in terms of like writing it down, the idea of having a constant bass note. And A over D, if we were to interpret it as like a tonality or a mode, it could come from either like D major or D Lydian. But, you know, just thinking in terms of like George Russell type of ideas, I like hearing it as like a Lydian. And the other one, D minor 9, essentially is like F Lydian, right? So it's almost like F Lydian to D Lydian, or D minor 9 to B minor 9. But as a chord, I'm writing it like this. And I am interested if anyone has an opinion on this, because remember, the original bass line was the first thing, and you would say that the first 6 notes, that's going over D minor 9, and then you'd say this is going over A over D. And I'm very specific about the bass notes here, and yet the bass notes that are being played are not necessarily lining up with this, or, you know, you think, oh, isn't it important for D to be in the bass? But I think this is an interesting thing compositionally, because it's like, yeah, this might be how the comping instrument is thinking, and they can just certainly still play those things in the bass. I think that's a good way to hear it, and it kind of shows you like even simple triads, like, or like a D minor or an F major, an A major, just things to work with melodically. You know, I like the simplicity of this, and I think that it's right in my head to write it like this, instead of, you know, being overly concerned with the notes that the bass player is actually playing, if that makes any sense. But if you have an opinion on that, let me know. All right, so now as far as this rhythmic figure goes, I have at least some basic harmony, right? But it's not the whole song. And, you know, 9 bars is fast, especially at the 4/4 tempo. You know, even if I'm cool with that being the whole form, it is a short form. It kind of reminds me of like the A section of like A Night in Tunisia, like I said before. So if I'm thinking about something like that, it's almost like, you know, if you think of Night in Tunisia, it just has that same repeating like cadence resolution, and then at the end it's still like the same resolution. It just puts like the 2 in front of it and doesn't use a tritone sub, or at least how it's written down, but it just sort of like extends it. So I might say like, or, you know, that might help me consider certain things in terms of like what I'm going to work out, right? So you know, in terms of what I ended up working out for the form, and I'm going to write this all out here, I think the easiest thing to do really is just to write it out first and then maybe explain it or everything, right? Because, you know, I have all the sort of variables in place, everything is lined up. I just have to think about how can I do this, and this is inevitably like the logical thing I came up with, all right? So what I'm about to write out here is essentially the entire form of the tune, you know, as if you were looking at like a chord chart in iReal Pro. So just bear with me here. Okay, so the whole form, all right? May look like a bunch of jargon, feel free to pause or whatever. So basically what I have is the figure that I've been rambling about, the main thing, that's over here. And you can see the first bar has the 6/8 or the 2 clave, and then the second one has a 3, and 3 times, right? 3 repetitions of it. So that'll give you 6 bars. I have 3 left. What do? The next bar I have, it's basically like the first one, D minor 9 again, same exact chord, same rhythmic feel. It's like a 6/8 or the 2 feel, all right? Now this one, this is where it varies. Every bar we've had 1 chord per measure. In this one, I have 2 chords per measure, and it has another 2 feel, not a 3. All right, I'll explain that in a second, but the one after it, the last bar, bar 9, is 3 again, and this one, so these 3 chords, I was thinking like I was saying before, like a minor 2/5 or something like that, resolving to B minor, even though I'm always keeping D in the root, right? And that's why I put these chords in parentheses, as you see. So forget about the variations. Like if you look at the root here, like C sharp, that's the 2 of like a minor 2/5 and B minor. F sharp in parentheses here is the 5, like a 5/7 altered, and then this one too. Actually, should have put it in parentheses in the last bar, like B minor major 7 or like B melodic minor, which is the relative minor of like a D major 7 sharp 5, basically, right? So with minor 2/5s, it's a common, nice little variation to play a dominant 7 sharp 9 chord for the 2 instead of like a half diminished. That works good. And then you see, even though I'm originally interpreting the 5 chord here as an F sharp 7 altered, the 5 in the key of B minor, I write B flat major 7 sharp 11 because that's like, I'm playing this type of voicing. It's basically implying, if I looked at what those notes were over like F sharp, it would be the 3rd, the flat 7, the sharp 9, and the sharp 5. So perfect alter dominant chord, right? But just that's literally what I'm playing, just for clarity's sake. So I wanted to write it like that. So C sharp 7 sharp 9 to B flat major 7 sharp 11, and then like I said, I'm writing it as a D major 7 sharp 5 because I want that in the bass or whatever, but I write B minor in parentheses, right? And if you look at sort of the clave of the whole 9 bars, it's 2 3 times 3, so it's like 2 3 2 3 2 3 2 2 3, right? So basically, if I were to play the chords, and this is exactly how I play them, and sort of write them on the tab, like the rhythm part, and be like, 1 2. Now, 1 2 1 1 2 3, right? Kind of pause there, but that's basically what it is, and you can hear it. I made the rhythm part, like this is basically the MIDI of the guitar. Alright, so ironically, the recording got disrupted again by one of the alarms on my phone. I'm actually doing this last part a few days later, but I actually really think it meant to work out this way because I had no original intentions of breaking the video up into parts, but I think it keeps it organized, so thanks for sticking with me. So, we left off, I was just basically playing the form of the chords with the MIDI and everything. So I'll play that here, and we're really gonna look at the melody and finish this video off, and I'll give you some musical things. But let me just play the melody on guitar first, pretty straight. Right, and then it'll repeat. So that's basically it. All right, now I also have the melody track with the PDF and everything around the recording, and you can hear it. But before I do anything else, I know we talked about rhythm earlier, but I think everyone's gonna enjoy this. This may even be some people's favorite part of the video. If I were to just talk about the drums or the brushes in the beginning, because that's cool stuff, but to me, it's not one of the more unique parts of this composition. But as far as the basic, 4/4 beat or time goes, like, I was thinking of a straight eighths type of thing. So in the beginning, with the brushes, I was kind of making it sound like a, like a Latin jazz or jazz straight eighths type of style thing. But, I've been really enjoying playing around with the brushes lately, and, to just give you some other possibilities, I'm gonna just share a clip of me playing, with this loop right here with the melody and everything to give you some other ideas, maybe more of a halftime backbeat thing, but check this out, so I think you'll like it. Alright, so I'll just say now, as far as, free things on my Patreon, basically I'm going to have this Guitar Pro MIDI file, which I ironically think sounds not too bad, with all of the tracks, the bass part, the guitar chords, and the little melody. and I'll have the PDF that has, notation and tabs for all those parts, which they're written in Guitar Pro. If anyone is interested, for other types of notation for this, whatever, let me know. But this obviously doesn't have like a drum track, so even for like drummers, if they're trying to mess around or find a groove or something for this, this one's good for that. Even to improvise with it, it's good. But as you'll see in a second, I also have like an iReal Pro track that I made, so it has like a straight eighths drum pattern on it, but it doesn't have the bass line. So bass players or guitar players, you can still practice the bass line along with it too. But for anyone who's interested, it's all there for free to check out. All right. So as far as the melody goes, I just want to say first, because I'm usually the person that says when it comes to melody, at least for playing jazz, that I think it's strongly tied to the spirit component, and how primarily I feel like my melodies are coming from a place of, as if I'm just singing them and they're coming through me like the divine, and I'm not, forcing it, I'm just hearing things that make sense and are musical. But that's very much, important for a jazz context when you're really playing spontaneous and live in the moment. It doesn't matter if what you're hearing and playing is something that you've never heard or played before, or if it's something that you've been practicing a lot lately. It doesn't really matter where it's coming from, but it's coming through you in the moment. So the natural spontaneity, it's like, I think that's what we're channeling. But if we're composing something and trying to make some sort of, pristine work, we have other approaches that we could take our time with and all that are really good too, right? So because of the natural complexities or specifics of this song, or just, the melody coming last, I'm still listening and trying to hear or sing something musical, but, the other variables are kind of making it very clear. So I think the easiest thing to do would be to kind of just read my notes for how I treated the melody, because, it's pretty basic, and it still sounds good playing it basic and straight and unembellished, but, I can improvise on it. I'll say a little bit more on that in a second, but basically, as far as the melody goes, I wrote, as an unembellished melody, I tried to fit the notes into the clave of the form, like we've talked about, basically treating the 6/8 like 2, like we said, and then, you have your 3 over there, so it's basically like 2s and 3s, and essentially alternating between regular half notes and half note triplets. Yeah, because these would be like half notes if we sum these down to like 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, right? Hopefully you can see that here. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, right? So basically alternating between half notes and half note triplets, and using harmonically appropriate notes to create suitable variations on a repeating motif. Right, so that's basically what's going on with the melody. Now, as far as like the notes I'm using, and this may also be insightful for even like improvising whatever around us, right? And I'm still getting comfortable, so the more comfortable I get, the more I can just naturally hear melodically, regardless of what I'm playing. But, the harmony, it's like there's a lot of common tonalities between the chords, but, there's still some changes. So I found so far that, triads work really good on this. So I may write this in for you, just so you have some ideas, because, these triads also kind of apply, a lot of them, to the melody as well, right? So I'll just erase this and I'll kind of put like the triad options above, right? So, for D minor 9, and I'm writing it as the chord, like in the music, so there's a lot of triads within that, even up to the 9, so what do I have? Like, you can think D minor, F major, yeah, basically D minor, F major is what I put for that. Alright, then, oh no, also I would put A minor, the minor on the 5th, alright? That's good too, and that makes sense because of basically where we're going next when the chord is A over D, right? So for that A over D, I would mainly think A major, but also D major, because it's like I said earlier in the video, it's A over D, and I'm mainly relating it to like a D Lydian, but that's of course the same thing as A major, so you have the A major triad. So you can go from like D minor to D major, or A minor to A major, or whatever you want, just giving you some variation, right? So then in the end, the D minor chord, same triads as the other one. So I'll just say like D minor, F major, A minor. Now for this, the C sharp 7, sharp 9, and what I'm really hearing like a 5 or like an F sharp 7 altered, and then resolving to B minor, or like minor major 7, like the melodic minor, or D augmented. So what did I put? For the C7 sharp 9, I like the D minor triad, as well as the E minor. You know, it's basically like D melodic minor. Same things like C sharp 7 altered, and both those minor triads are there. And you can kind of keep a consistent D minor here, if you want. You know, for the F sharp 7 altered, G minor gives that altered sound, if you want. And even the diminished, like the C sharp diminished, or whatever diminishes relate to that, you know. You're resolving to like a B minor or a D augmented. So for this, that augmented sound, it's really strong. So really, I'll just put like a D augmented triad and like a B minor triad. But basically like B melodic minor, right? So let me put this here in case it wasn't clear. You want to like pause it or something, right? But again, you don't have to like overthink it. It's there like when you're learning, but like this tune, you know, you can think really triadically over it, right? So, you know, just before I play around with it, so we can wrap it up, you know, like I've said, I really feel passionate, you know, about this composition just as a 9-bar form. You know, let me know what you think. Am I making a big deal about this, or is this, you know, as I wrote here, is there really potential here as an accessible short form, you know, that could be played and, you know, perhaps manipulated and mess around with? Because, you know, I'm just hypothesizing here, but, you know, typically, even if you're in 4/4, like a 9-bar form would sound sort of like asymmetrical or sort of off balance or incomplete, I would think. And I'm not saying this objectively, but maybe because of the clave, you know, of like distinctly hearing beats of like 2 and 3, and then sort of balancing out with like the last 2 bars when we have like 2 chords, and you know, it's like just the uniqueness of it. I'm not saying that it has to be like exactly this, but you know, maybe you can put like the 3s and 6s in different places. You know, there's a lot of possibilities that I'm not gonna, you know, try to ramble about right now, but it's just like a blues basically. It's like if you can see the sort of general, you know, outer structure or foundation that holds it all together, you know, but people have to like it, you know. Is it cool to be able to play over, you know, 9 bars and have it feel natural? I mean, who knows? But that's what I'm basically trying to present to you. And, you know, with the whole 3-6-9 phenomenon anyway, like, you know, what does that do musically? You know, can this get us used to hearing forms that are a little bit more asymmetrical? You know, because if you have a 9-bar form, you know, that could produce a 3, like somehow making like a 3-bar form or something that makes sense, or 6 or whatever, 18. 18 is kind of like what we had with the brush groove before, like the halftime, but, you know, but you get the idea. I think I'm kind of rambling about it now, right? So let's wrap this up. So I really appreciate it if you stuck around to the end. It means a lot to me. So I'm gonna basically play out. Like I said, I have another like iReal Pro track that I made. It doesn't have the bass part, but I'll just improvise along with this. You know, I'll play the melody a little bit. Maybe I'll play the bass line, you know, just so you can hear it, just to kind of hear the same stuff again, like as a demo, and for you to enjoy. All right, so leave it there. So, you know, like, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe. If you're interested in lessons or anything, you know, anything you want to say, work, just hit me up. I'm interested to hear what you think. All right, so I'm gonna play you out now, and enjoy the rest of your day. You know, another thing, it's like, if I'm gonna play like that 2 and 3 is clear, but even just the quantity of notes could be good, because like I don't have to fit in that exact rhythm, but if I consistently hit 2 and 3, like that could be cool. So I'll give you a demo of that maybe.